Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the UE podcast. And today we have the two lovely ladies from Crowe DNA, Nicole and Este, in the studio here with us. We are continuing our conversation on Mind Your Business, the campaign that we are currently running, which are talking about the mind, your mental health, and the effect that it actually has on business. So will one of you ladies mind just giving our listeners a bit more of information on who you are and who is Crowe DNA?
Thank you so much, Elise. I'm Nicole, and this is my colleague, Este. We are organizational psychologists, and we form part of Crowe DNA. Crowe DNA is a human capital advisory firm, and we specialize in all areas and facets of human capital management, looking at HR processes and systems, but more importantly, and what we'll be discussing today, is the organizational development side of it, looking at employee well-being, looking at the specific competencies, cultures that are necessary to propel and to enable organizations to be effective in the future. And we look forward to discussing that with you today.
Great, thank you so much. We also do have Gary here with us in the studio. Sorry, Gary, for forgetting about you there for a second.
No problem, nice to be here.
All right, so like Nicole mentioned, today we'll be talking about the role of organizational psychology in minding your business. And the first question I've got for you ladies is just, how has the world of work changed? And how has it affected the work environment?
So the world of work has and is continuously changing. I think everyone's thinking back on the pandemic, and it's really propelled us into changing and understanding how much the world has changed. But what we need to understand is that the world is changing right now as we speak. And it's so important for organizations to understand this. And this is really where we come in, to understand how organizations must change from a structural perspective, their culture, the different skills and capabilities necessary to be effective in the future. Through the work that Este and I have done, all the research, we've discovered that there are 3 different types of shifts. And it's so important for organizations to understand this and to be able to respond to it effectively. There's technological shifts, things like big data coming in, organizations being able to make quicker decisions. And this is because this is very, very important because we have to adapt to the different technologies. Transactional work in the future might fall away. Then we look at the generational shifts. And this is really important because you've got all the different generations coming in. You know, your people are talking about the Millennials, but you already have your Gen Zs coming in.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you get organizations that can't transform to adapt to those the diversity and cultures, and not just in cultures and race and personality, but the different thinking processes that will be necessary for the future. And like I said, the different diversity and generations are so important. Then the third shift is in career shift, and this is really important because the skills that are necessary today might not be necessary for the future. So what we are doing now is we're looking at what are those competencies, those skills necessary for the future, and what will make organizations effective then. So this helps us to target our talent management, succession planning, the type of talent we're trying to recruit and retain at this stage. Will it still be necessary for the future? We're going to move away from very specialist skills to these protean workers that are multi-skilled, that can work cross cultures and cross functions, and this is really so important. And understanding why that these shifts are happening and will continuously happen is so important for organizations and leaders in organizations to understand. With that comes a change in the talent that we're looking for, the way in which we manage and attract talent. And it really asks us, we need to ask ourselves some critical questions around what are those type of competencies? What are those skills? Do we have the right structures in place? Do we have the right systems and processes in place? So, the changing world of work, we continuously have to ask ourselves these questions.
Yeah, and just to add on to Nicole, we are moving away from a role focus more to a competence focus. So, where we used to look at an accountant to say, well, we need an accountant to do X, Y, and Z, we now look at a different perspective to say, well, what skills do we use to do X, Y, and Z, and who can develop those skills? So it's a bit of a shift in focus, as Nicole indicated.
Definitely, and looking at how obviously things are changing, right? Looking at a lot of people now actually working from home. They're not necessarily even going into the office
Absolutely.
anymore, and technology is taking over, would you say that employees are still a business' most valuable asset?
Absolutely. I think as long as people are still there, we bring a level of complexity and uniqueness to an organization. What has changed is how we utilize technology to get the best out of people. So that is a massive drive at this moment. And you will see that from an employee enters the organization, right across the value chain, we use different types of technology to help that employee adapt, to assess that employee's skills, to help that employee learn the skills that they need. And then also to manage the talent of those employees, manage performance, measuring the culture, measuring engagement, etc. So although there's no silver bullet with technology, we do find that if you find the right technological tools to help employees become the best that they can be, you are heading in the right direction.
Definitely. Yeah. Gary,
So,
questions from
yeah.
your side?
Just a question from my side would be, how can an organization get the best out of their employees?
Right, so it's a good question. If we look at employee, we have to view employees holistically, right? So it's not only an employee that comes to work and who just, executes their duties at work. Employees have many facets. They've got psychological elements to them, physical elements, emotional and also spiritual elements to them. What we do find is that if we want to get employee into a space where they are really focused, happy, engaged, and I think we've all been there, when you are engaged in an activity that really gives you energy, it's almost like the time flies by and you tend to lose focus on the external world and you just focus on that activity, like a gymnast, in their routine, or a swimmer, going from one lap to the next. We call that workflow. And a guideline that we use to help us to get employees into that workflow space is to look at the job requirements, right? And whether that job requirements is aligned to the employee's technical skills and capabilities. So if the job requires you to do certain for example, from a psychology perspective, can you administer psychometric assessments? For example, do you have the skills to do that? And then also looking at the alignment between that and the employee's personal preferences and the interest of that employee. So the alignment between job requirements, skills, and interest helps us to get an employee into a space where they are engaged, and in that space they usually give their best and perform at their best. So that is just one of the ways that we can help employees to get the best out of them.
Awesome.
And so if I can just add to what Este said, I think what's so important is to understand we can measure capability. So we understand an organization, we understand the culture, and then we look at what the role requirement is. So that's one part, to making sure that the person fits in there. But then we look at, is this person right for the role? Why are they not happy? And although they have the capability for it, why are they not satisfied? Why are they not getting drawing energy from it? And this really helps us to understand people's values, their drivers, because what gives you energy and what motivates you is what you're going to be good at. So although you can do it, is it really what you want to do? And in that way, we can better fit people in the right roles, and take those square pegs out of the right holes. And understand where they can be, and also measure potential too. And this helps to retain the best talent, because we can create that journey for them. And like I mentioned, diversity in generations, the millennials and the younger generations coming in, they want to know what's my growth path in this organization. Everyone wants to come in to be this next CEO in 1 or 2 years, but if they can see the result, and I mean the millennials have these narcissistic, self-fulfilling prophet, views of themselves, but if that you can show them, and almost like a carrot in front of their nose, this is your roadmap, this is where you're going, you can retain them. And this is why they bounce around a lot. They move different organizations. Really hard to retain them. It's because they don't understand. They're not connected to the purpose of the organization. There's no meaning. They're not just going to stay because they're loyal to the organization. So it's so important to understand the individual, what drives them, what motivates them. Do they fit the role? How do they relate to the culture? Are they connected to the purpose of the organization? And then also translating that into a team dynamic. How do we work together as a team, understanding each other at a different level?
Brilliant. Maybe you can just remind us, it's not part of the script, but the millennials, what are the Gen Zs, where does that start and end? Just a reminder to some of our listeners who might not know where that starts and ends. I don't know if you've got an answer to that.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, there's different views, different perspectives and different theories on this. But the millennials is actually from 1985 up to 2000. I think up to 2000, and then everyone born from 2000 and up are entering Gen Zs, and these individuals are now entering our workforce, right? So they are now 20, 21 years old, probably finished their studies, some of them, and really looking forward to how we are going to utilize them and how we're going to provide them with different types of value propositions.
And this is really something that we were challenged with, in the pandemic especially. You got these older organizations, they've been around for 90, 100 years, and the leadership team and the processes and the structures are so established that they battle to create the flexibility and, what inspires these and everyone keeps talking about the millennials, but already as it stands, 80% of our workforce are millennials. We're already starting to cater for the Gen Zs, who is a completely different mindset. They want different, they need meaning and purpose just as much, but they want to be challenged. And technology is a big thing as well. So, and not just looking at the organization and technology and the structure, but understanding what formed and mold them. They want quick satisfaction. They're not very patient. Hard work. They want quick results. And it's very important for leaders to understand this, and so that they can get the best out of them.
And just to link back to the previous question is, if you use the right technology to measure these skills, to measure these interests, to engage with your employees, we know of, a few clients that we've helped with dashboards, to track their culture, for example. Now it's all of a sudden visible for everyone. It's not only limited to a boardroom table. I can dial in, see what does the culture look like at the moment, what are the pitfalls, what are we currently doing to improve it. So it just opens up so many doors for us. It's actually a very exciting time to practice psychology.
Well, that's amazing. So the dashboard, is that something that you guys did, that Crowe DNA implemented within a company? Yeah,
so we work with different service providers that will help us. That helps us from that tech perspective.
Okay.
And like we said, we collaborate with various professionals and firms in order to deliver the best solutions to our clients. Yeah.
It's amazing, because at the end of the day, if we look at it now, we spend about 8-9 hours at work. So if we're looking at employee wellness, we have to get out of that mindset where it's like it's your job and you just have to do what you do, go in, go home, and clock in, clock out. But you spend so much time there that this is so important. And for leaders to move from that perspective to, I really have to start taking care and understand, like you're saying, okay, what's the best, what's the capabilities, what can this person do, what fits the personality, and actually implement that would be most beneficial for a company at the end of the day as well, and for a manager or leader.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And, leadership has changed, and that is a complete topic on its own. But to understand well-being, especially now, people working from home a lot, although it comes with its perks, employee well-being is at the top of everyone's mind, because there's no more separation. Your home is now your workspace. It's far more accessible. We are seeing so much a high level of anxiety and burnout and people's resilience really being tested. And this is where leadership has to change. You know, we now have to, just like we had to adapt as psychologists to be able to facilitate online sessions and, you know, trying to psychoanalyze people through a computer screen, leaders have to adjust to, you know, leading virtual teams. The empathetic leader, the one that can pull people together and show care for their people, are the ones that will, you know, really thrive in this time.
Brilliant. So maybe while we chatting about all the problems and the challenges that are there, what types of services do you as organizational psychologists provide, and what solutions do you provide?
So at Crowe DNA, we really focus on all facets of human capital management. We looking at the HR side, the more transactional, IR, performance management, the change management, and then moving more towards the organizational development side. And that's very much what Este and I are describing to you today, where the psychology part is so important. Where the HR side makes sure that you've got the right systems and processes in place. We make sure that everything surrounding that is enabling you to be able to be effective. The structure, the culture, the capabilities, the people, everything around that. And that is where psychology really plays a part. What we found, and never before has our field of expertise been more relevant than it is now. It's been such an exciting time. And discovering the new competencies that are necessary, how the cultures and the different generations are changing the workplace. It's just constantly evolving. It's also on everyone's top of everyone's mind, where HR was almost like a paper pushing idea. We are now forming a strategic partner role, where this is employee well-being is a leadership issue. It has to be a mandate, and diversity and understanding these things and how it links to your strategy is really, really important. So it's not just a nice to have, it is absolutely critical. So we go into organizations and we assess and diagnose individual, team and organizational dynamics, so that we can come in and intervene appropriately to come up with the right solutions. So like Essie mentioned around the culture survey, that's just one example. So we call it culture survey because everyone understands that, but what we look and underneath the surface, we look at different organizational drivers. We look at communication, we could look at leadership, we look at the talent fit, we look at praise and recognition, we look at all of those drivers of effectiveness. And in that way, even at team level, we can diagnose it so that we can have kind of a benchmark to understand, we can, and pinpoint interventions more accurately to say, we're not going to have a shotgun approach or throw this blanket intervention. We are going to, at this team, these are the low scoring drivers, this is the intervention needed, and this is how we track and monitor to make sure that we effectively and appropriately intervene. And that's really helped us to understand an organization very, very clearly. And then when I talk about the diagnostic side, culture surveys is one. We do a lot of team effectiveness diagnostics, engagement surveys, employee well-being. This really helps us to understand. So we never go and say, here's our catalog, here's our products. We spend a lot of time with the executive team. We spend a lot of time with senior management and with staff at all levels, so that we can say, we understand your business. We understand what your challenges are. And in that way, we form very tight, long-lasting relationships with clients. We don't just come in, quick fix, okay, bye. We really understand them. And then often, so for example, we never did recruitment and selection. But now our clients depend on us so much because we understand their culture, we understand where they're moving towards the future. They won't recruit anyone without asking us to first, do the assessments. And in that, as part of the diagnostic, also plays a critical part is the psychometric assessments. So like I mentioned earlier, in terms of the change in competencies and understanding what the organization needs for the future, understanding how a person fits into a role is so important. So we use psychometric assessments to really understand a leadership team, a person. How do we create development? What does it look like from a succession and a talent management perspective? So we have so many different types of tools and psychological assessments that we use to really help us to diagnose and then come up with the right solution. And I think the most difficult or the most exciting part of our role is that no organization is the same, no team is the same, and no person is the same. So our role is always evolving. We go to a client and they'll sometimes say, oh, we need the culture, we need a high performing organizational culture. They throw these words that they read in the Harvard Business Review or somewhere, and then we'll ask them, okay, well, do you have job descriptions in place? And they'll say, oh no, and then we have to backtrack, or first put job descriptions in place, performance management system, and then we can have the conversation around what does the performance look like for the specific role? How can you give someone feedback if they don't even know what they are supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And then we can say, is this person a right fit for the role? And we can just uncover it like that. So we really form and mold our approach to every client once we have a deep understanding of certain dynamics and problems that are currently happening.
It's very similar than going to the doctor. You go to the doctor with symptoms, and you might have a tummy ache or a headache, but it's rarely the cause. And we take the same approach. We look at symptoms. Your employees are not performing. There are conflict in teams, for example. But what are the actual causes underlying that? Because if you don't treat the causes, it is so difficult just to put like a temporary fire out with a team, but that issue will just still keep on coming back until you resolve the actual cause. So
brilliant. So you can help me with understanding my 16-year-old son then.
Yes, we can do
that.
And my daughter, my teenagers.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Thank you, ladies, so much. For that information really shared. I'm sitting and I'm just taking it all in and listening. It's really, really good stuff. I really hope that our listeners out there enjoyed that as well. Thank you very much, Nicole and Este, for your time. So this is, listeners out there, this is only episode 1. We're doing a second episode coming up, so tune back in later and we'll be chatting to Este and Nicole from Crowe DNA again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.